Across the galaxy, there was one rule that no one dared to question. It was older than empires, older than many of the stars that still burned in the dark. The rule was simple: do not touch humans. No alien could harm them, enslave them, or even interfere with them. The law was not written in books or carved in stone, but it lived in the hearts of every species. From the highest councils to the smallest traders, the message was clear. Humans were untouchable. And yet, no one spoke of why. To ask was dangerous, to wonder was foolish, and to seek the truth was almost madness. But for one young alien officer, silence was not enough. His name was Kether, and he was newly assigned to the Galactic Patrol. He had read the rules, memorized the codes, and studied the long history of interstellar law. But when he came across the strange command about humans, he could not stop himself from asking, why? His voice was casual when he first said it, a question during training, almost a joke. But the room grew quiet at once. The senior officer froze, his eyes narrowing with something close to fear. The other cadets shifted uncomfortably, as if the air itself had turned heavy. Finally, the trainer spoke. His voice was cold, almost whispering. Do not ask that again. Do not ever ask. Kether was stunned. He thought perhaps it was a mistake, a test. But later, in the dining hall, he asked again, this time to an older officer. The reaction was the same. Silence, fear, and then a quick change of subject. No one wanted to talk. No one wanted to remember. That night, Kether lay awake in his quarters, his thoughts burning. What was so terrible about humans that the galaxy carried this rule for centuries? He had never even seen a human. Many young aliens had not. Humans lived far from the center of galactic trade. They were quiet, almost invisible in modern times. Some believed they had chosen isolation. Others whispered that they were forced into it. But the truth was locked away, hidden behind walls of silence. The mystery ate at Kether. He searched through old records, but most files about humans were sealed. He hacked into deeper archives, only to find redacted lines and warnings that blinked in angry red letters. Restricted, do not access. He began to notice something strange. Every time he searched for humans, his console lagged, as if someone was watching. Soon after, senior officers called him in and warned him again. You are not the first to ask, one said. The others who tried, they did not last long. Kether left the meeting with a chill in his chest. Still, the hunger for answers only grew stronger. Why were humans different? Why were they feared? One evening, when he thought no one was watching, he asked an old mechanic in the hangar. The man was scarred, his hands rough with age, his eyes clouded. At first, he said nothing. Then slowly, he leaned close and whispered, Boy, there was a war. Long ago. A war no one likes to remember. His voice shook, and he stopped speaking. Kether begged him to continue, but the old man only shook his head and walked away, leaving Kether with more questions than answers. The next day, rumors spread across the station. Some said Kether was foolish, others said he was cursed. His name began to travel, and with it, shadows began to follow him. Every corridor seemed to hold eyes. Every silence felt heavier. The galaxy had many secrets, but none as dangerous as this one. And still, the words of the rule echoed in his mind, do not touch humans. Why? What could make the most powerful empires of the galaxy bow to such a law? What could make entire fleets stay away from one small species? Kether felt the answer was close, like a storm on the horizon. But he did not know that by seeking the truth, he was already walking a path that could awaken something the galaxy had hoped to forget forever. Because humans were not untouchable by chance. They were untouchable for a reason carved in fire and blood, a reason the stars themselves seemed to fear. And once that reason returned, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Long before the rule was born, before the silence, before the galaxy learned to fear the name of humanity, there was an empire that believed it was unstoppable. The Varkon dominion stretched across hundreds of systems, their fleets vast, their armies countless. To them, Every new world was just another jewel in their crown. They enslaved races, stripped planets, and crushed all who resisted. When their scouts first discovered Earth, they laughed. Humans seemed small, fragile, and primitive compared to the mighty species of the stars. They had no great fleets, no energy shields, no weapons that could challenge the power of the Dominion. To the Varkon generals, humanity was a weak prize waiting to be taken. Their first invasion fleet entered the Sol system with banners of victory already raised. They thought it would be simple. It was not. The humans resisted from the first moment. With weapons that looked like toys compared to alien technology, with ships that seemed outdated and slow, they fought. The Varkans crushed the first wave of human defenses easily, destroying satellites, shattering orbital stations, and burning cities below. They thought the war was already over. But then, something happened that no alien could explain. The humans kept fighting. Even as their cities burned, even as millions died, they did not surrender. Where other races had bent their knees, the humans rose in fury. Where other species broke under fear, the humans grew stronger. Soldiers who had lost everything fought harder, not weaker. Families whose homes were destroyed built weapons in basements, turning tools into bombs and scrap into guns. Children carried messages for fighters in the shadows. Old men stood beside young warriors, refusing to bow. The Dominion began to notice something troubling. For every human they killed, two more rose. For every battle they thought was won, resistance appeared again from the ashes. It was not the weapons of humans that terrified the Varkans. It was their will. The Varkans had fought many species before. They knew the patterns of war. A species fought, suffered, and eventually gave up. That was the cycle. But humans broke the cycle. The more they were pushed, the harder they struck back. The more pain they suffered, the stronger their rage became. The Varkans soon realized they were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting an entire planet that refused to die. And the planet fought with something no calculation, no strategy could measure: hope. The first great battle on Earth's soil was in the ruins of New York. The Dominion landed troops, confident of easy victory. But what they found was chaos turned into fire. Civilians became fighters, streets became traps, and buildings became fortresses. The humans fought not only with weapons, but with courage and cleverness. They used the enemy's own machines against them, hijacking armored walkers and turning them on their masters. They lured troops into narrow streets and destroyed them with hidden explosives. The Varkans reported heavy losses in a place they thought would fall in a day. When word spread through the galaxy, other species listened. Whispers began: the humans do not surrender. The Dominion silenced the whispers with fear, but deep down, their commanders knew the truth. The humans were different. In orbit, battles grew worse. Human pilots flew ships that should not have stood a chance, yet they fought with such reckless bravery that even Dominion aces were outmatched. They pushed their fragile craft to the edge, turning them into weapons of sacrifice. A single human ship would ram into an alien cruiser, tearing holes where no missile could reach. Dominion captains began to dread reports of human fleets, no matter how small. And still, the Varkans laughed in public, calling humans weak. But in private, their fear was growing. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion was not winning as quickly as it wanted. For the first time, they faced an enemy that did not know how to break. One Varkon general wrote in his journal, words never meant to be shared: "We thought we faced a primitive species. What we face is something far worse. They fight like demons. They fight like their blood is fire. And I fear we have awakened something that cannot be stopped." The journal was later erased, buried by order of the Dominion Council. But the truth had already begun to spread among the soldiers who fought on the front lines. They spoke in hushed voices about the humans. Some called them cursed, others called them monsters. But most agreed on one thing: they were untouchable in spirit. The war that should have lasted months stretched into years. And in those years, the galaxy began to see the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity was something no empire could tame. And as the Dominion pressed harder, as they unleashed greater firepower, they made one terrible mistake. They taught the humans how to fight a war beyond their world. And once humanity learned, they would never forget. The first encounter was not the end. It was only the beginning of the story that would change the galaxy forever. The Dominion thought time was on their side. They had crushed worlds before, and they believed humans would eventually break as all others had. But the longer the war stretched, the more the Dominion began to see something they had never witnessed in any other species. Humans did not grow weaker with loss. They grew stronger. The fire inside them burned brighter with every defeat, every tragedy, every wound. What other races called despair, humans turned into fury. What others called surrender, humans turned into defiance. The more the Dominion tried to crush them, the more dangerous they became. On the battlefield, soldiers spoke of human eyes. They said those eyes carried storms inside them, storms that could not be stopped. When a human's home was destroyed, he did not fall to his knees, he picked up a weapon. When a family was taken, the survivors fought until their last breath. Even children grew fierce, carrying supplies through dangerous zones, refusing to cry even under fire. It was as if the entire species shared a single heartbeat, a rhythm of survival that no alien could match. The Dominion's commanders grew frustrated. Their technology was superior. Their fleets outnumbered the humans. Yet the humans adapted faster than any strategy could predict. They copied alien weapons, rewired alien machines, and even learned alien languages in weeks. What took other races years to study, humans grasped in days. This frightened the Dominion more than their courage. For every battle won, humans gained knowledge. For every weapon turned against them, they found a way to make it their own. Reports flowed back to the Dominion Council, each one more troubling than the last. Human guerrilla groups on occupied planets were fighting back with stolen energy rifles. Entire Dominion bases were falling to uprisings led by farmers and workers. In one infamous battle on Mars, a group of human miners armed with nothing but drills and explosives destroyed a full Dominion armored division. It was said the last words of the Varkon commander before his base exploded were these: "They fight like fire. They fight like no one I have ever seen." Fear began to spread among the soldiers of the Dominion. Whispers echoed in their camps. Do not underestimate the humans. Do not corner them. If you think they are beaten, they will destroy you. The Dominion tried to crush this fear with propaganda, calling humans weak and foolish. But no speech could erase what soldiers saw with their own eyes. And then came the moment that shook the galaxy. A fleet of human ships, small and fragile compared to Dominion cruisers, launched a desperate attack near Titan. They had no chance of victory, but they charged anyway, weaving between massive enemy ships like hunters chasing giants. One by one, their ships were destroyed, but not before striking blow after blow. The humans rammed their vessels into Dominion carriers, detonating their reactors in suicidal firestorms. The battle was madness, and yet it worked. A Dominion fleet 3 times stronger was forced to retreat, humiliated and broken. The galaxy watched in disbelief. It was not possible. It should not have been possible. And yet, it had happened. For the first time, an empire that ruled with fear tasted fear itself. What terrified them most was not the weapons of humanity, but their spirit. Humans were not fighting for conquest or wealth. They were fighting for survival, for freedom, for each other. They carried inside them a bond that no empire could understand. They did not fight because they were ordered. They fought because they refused to let one another fall. That bond gave them strength beyond numbers, beyond logic. It was as if fire lived in their blood, and every drop spilled only made the flame burn hotter. Dominion scientists tried to explain it. They studied human prisoners, searching for something in their biology that made them different. But they found nothing. Humans were fragile by every measure, weak muscles compared to other species, shorter lifespans, vulnerable bodies. And yet, when the battle began, those fragile forms became unstoppable. What science could not measure was the human will. What no calculation could capture was the fire inside them. The Dominion tried to erase their shame by tightening their grip, by sending more fleets, more armies, more terror. But it only added fuel to the human fire. Every new attack created legends. Every fallen city became a rallying cry. Songs of defiance spread through the ranks of soldiers and civilians alike. The galaxy was changing, though few dared to admit it aloud. Other species, long enslaved by the Dominion, heard the stories. Some began to hope. Some even began to whisper that the humans might be the key to breaking the Empire's chains. But the humans themselves did not care about galactic destiny. They fought for their homes, their families, their future. They fought because they had no other choice. And in their fight, they became something no empire could contain. The Dominion had unleashed a force far greater than it understood. A force not measured by ships or weapons, but by the unbreakable fire in the human heart. The war was no longer just about Earth. It was about survival, about freedom, about proving to the stars that humans could not be broken. And as the fire spread, the galaxy began to realize a truth that would echo for centuries. The more you try to destroy a human, the stronger they become. The Dominion had fought many wars, but none had lasted this long. What was supposed to be an easy conquest had turned into a nightmare that stretched across years. At first, the galaxy believed the Dominion's victory was inevitable. How could a single world stand against such power? But then the unthinkable happened. The tide began to shift. It started quietly, in small victories, in battles where the humans should have lost but somehow endured. Dominion commanders called it luck, but luck does not happen again and again. Slowly, the truth revealed itself. Humans were learning. They were adapting faster than any species had ever done. Every defeat became a lesson, every loss a weapon sharpened for the next fight. When the Dominion deployed new technology, humans studied it, copied it, and soon used it better than the creators themselves. When the Dominion tried new tactics, humans changed their strategies within days. It was as if the entire species had become a living machine of survival, one that grew stronger every time it was tested. The first great sign of the turning point came in the Battle of Ceres. The Dominion sent a fleet 3 times larger than the human defense forces. The battle should have lasted hours. Instead, it dragged on for days. Human pilots, using smaller and weaker ships, weaved through the enemy lines with impossible precision. They fought like predators who knew every weakness of their prey. By the 3rd day, the Dominion fleet was in retreat. Entire sectors of the galaxy were stunned. How could humans, with so little, push back against so much? Rumors spread quickly. Whispers carried through the dark channels of enslaved species. The humans are winning. The humans are fighting back. For many, those words were dangerous, but they were also hope. On occupied worlds, rebellions stirred. Slaves picked up weapons, inspired by the fire of a species they had never met. The Dominion tried to hide their losses, but fear is a disease that spreads faster than lies. Among their own soldiers, morale began to collapse. To fight humans was no longer seen as honorable, it was seen as a death sentence. Some Dominion troops began to refuse orders, others deserted their posts. And still, the humans kept pushing. On Earth, entire industries transformed overnight. Civilian factories built weapons. Scientists worked day and night, turning scraps into innovations. Farmers became engineers, teachers became leaders, and children grew up with fire in their eyes. Humanity was no longer defending, they were preparing to strike back. The Dominion's leaders met in secret councils. Their discussions grew desperate. They could not understand how a species so fragile was turning into their greatest enemy. One admiral shouted, "We can burn their cities, but we cannot break their will." Another replied, "If this continues, the humans will not only defend their world, they will take ours." They dismissed the warning as impossible, but deep inside they all feared it. And then, it happened. The moment that would be remembered as the turning point of the war. A human fleet, smaller than any Dominion armada, launched a counterattack on the colony world of Vera. The Dominion had used Vera as a staging ground, a fortress world filled with weapons and supplies. No one believed humans could touch it. But they did. With precision strikes, with relentless courage, the humans shattered the Dominion garrison and freed the slaves of that world. The news spread like wildfire. For the first time, the Dominion lost a core world to an enemy. For the first time, the galaxy saw the Dominion stumble. And for the first time, humans were not seen as prey, they were seen as predators. Across the stars, the enslaved began to rise. They looked to the humans not as saviors, but as proof that the Empire could bleed. One whisper became a storm: if humans can fight, so can we. The Dominion responded with fury, sending more fleets, more soldiers, more fire. But the harder they struck, the more resistance grew. Every planet became a battlefield, every colony a spark of rebellion. The galaxy was no longer under the Dominion's full control. It was unraveling. And at the center of it all stood humanity, burning with a fire that could not be put out. The humans themselves did not realize what they had become. To them, they were only surviving, only fighting for their homes and families. But to the galaxy, they were becoming a legend. The turning point was not a single battle. It was the moment the galaxy realized the Dominion was not eternal. It was the moment the stars themselves seemed to whisper a warning. The humans were coming, and nothing could stop them. The Dominion had always believed in one truth: no species could ever overthrow them. Their fleets were endless, their armies unchallenged, their power unmatched. For centuries they had crushed rebellion after rebellion, leaving only ashes behind. But then came the humans, and with them came the impossible. The Dominion's commanders tried to convince themselves that the turning point at Vera was only a mistake, an accident of timing. They told their soldiers that the humans had been lucky, that the Empire was still unshakable. Yet deep inside, they knew the truth. The unthinkable had begun. Humans were not only resisting, they were winning. It started with whispers from occupied worlds. On planets where humans were taken as prisoners, strange things began to happen. Camps that had been silent for years suddenly erupted in flames of rebellion. Human captives led uprisings, seizing weapons and destroying their guards. They organized with terrifying speed, turning small riots into coordinated wars within hours. The Dominion had always seen slaves as broken creatures, stripped of spirit. But when humans were enslaved, they became the spark that lit the fire. Entire planets began to fall into chaos, not because of great human armies, but because of human prisoners who refused to bow. On Korra 7, it was a single human woman who led thousands of slaves into battle, seizing control of the mines and forcing a Dominion fleet to retreat. On Rallos Prime, a human boy barely 17 years old hijacked a Dominion transport and crashed it into their command center, sparking a rebellion that spread across the sector. The galaxy watched in shock. The unthinkable was happening again and again. Wherever humans were placed, order collapsed. Wherever humans stood, others found courage. The Dominion tried to erase the news, but truth traveled faster than their lies. Soon, even their own soldiers began to believe the humans were cursed, that fighting them was dangerous not only to the body but to the soul. Reports from the front lines carried words that terrified commanders: they do not fear death. They fight like they are already free. They cannot be broken. The Council of the Dominion gathered in fear. They ordered entire worlds to be burned, hoping to crush the human fire with overwhelming terror. Cities were turned to ash, oceans boiled, millions perished. But even then, the humans did not yield. They rose from the ruins, bloodied but unbent, their rage only stronger. One admiral is recorded as saying, "Every time we kill them, we create warriors. Every time we destroy them, we forge legends. We are not winning, we are feeding the fire." And he was right. The galaxy had seen empires fall before, but never like this. It was not great fleets or mighty weapons that shook the Dominion. It was the spirit of one fragile species that refused to accept chains. Other races began to take notice. Small rebellions grew into wars. Entire planets that had once bowed to the Dominion now dared to stand. And always, at the center of their courage, was the sight of humans who refused to surrender. The unthinkable spread further when human fleets, once tiny and weak, began to attack deeper into Dominion space. They stole enemy ships, repainted them, and flew them against their former masters. They used Dominion weapons with such skill that even veteran officers were stunned. The empire that had ruled with fear was now surrounded by it. Their enemies were no longer in the shadows, they were everywhere. And yet, the humans were still outnumbered, still weaker on paper. The Dominion could not understand how this was possible. How could a species so fragile tear apart an empire so vast? The answer was simple, though no alien dared to speak it aloud. The humans had something no one else had. They had a spirit that turned defeat into strength, a will that turned despair into fire. They carried inside them a force that no empire could cage. The unthinkable was not that they fought. The unthinkable was that they could not be stopped. In the halls of power, the Dominion Council whispered in fear. They had tried to crush the humans, but instead they had awakened them. And now, like a storm breaking across the stars, humanity was rising. The unthinkable had become reality. The hunters had become the hunted. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had never seen fear spread so quickly. For centuries the Dominion had ruled without question, its laws written in fire, its fleets untouchable. But now the humans had shown the galaxy something that could not be forgotten. They had shown that even the greatest empire could bleed, that even the strongest chains could be broken. Across the stars, rebellion spread like wildfire. Species long enslaved rose up, their voices lifted by the echo of human defiance. The Dominion fought desperately, but their control crumbled faster with every passing year. The humans were no longer just a problem for the Dominion, they had become a symbol for the entire galaxy. At first, the Galactic Council tried to ignore it. The Council was made of ancient species, powerful and cautious, who preferred silence to conflict. But silence became impossible. Every report that reached them carried the same truth: the humans could not be defeated. The Dominion begged for aid, demanded that the Council act, but no one wanted to send fleets against humanity. The reason was simple: those who fought humans did not return. Admirals who commanded against them vanished in disgrace or death. Armies sent to suppress them collapsed in chaos. It was as if the humans carried a curse that destroyed all who dared to touch them. The Council feared the Dominion's collapse, but they feared the humans even more. Whispers filled the grand chambers. What if they cannot be controlled? What if they turn on us next? What if they are the end of us all? At first, some suggested extermination. A combined fleet of all major powers could burn Earth to ashes, wipe the humans from history, and erase the threat. But others spoke with trembling voices, reminding the chamber of the cost already paid by the Dominion. If the strongest empire in the galaxy could not break them, what chance did anyone else have? And more importantly, what if the humans survived such an attack? What if they rose again, fiercer than before? That fear silenced the thought of extermination. In the end, the Council decided on a different path. If humans could not be destroyed, then they must be left alone. A law was drafted, not in pride, but in fear. It declared that no species could harm, enslave, or interfere with humanity. No armies would march on Earth. No fleets would enter its skies. No one would dare to provoke them again. It was not written as a treaty of friendship. It was written as a warning. The rule was simple: do not touch humans. When the Dominion collapsed under its own weight, the law spread across the galaxy. It was taught in schools, carved into archives, passed from generation to generation. Most species who came after did not even know why the rule existed. They only knew that it was absolute. To question it was dangerous. To break it was madness. And so, humanity was left alone. Their worlds rebuilt in silence, their fire hidden but never forgotten. The galaxy moved on, pretending the nightmare was over. But deep down, every council member, every leader, Every elder who remembered the war carried the same truth in their hearts. The humans had not been defeated. They had only chosen to stop. The law was not protection for humanity, it was protection for everyone else. Without it, the galaxy feared the fire would rise again, and if it did, no empire would survive. In time, younger generations grew careless. They looked at the humans and saw nothing but a mystery, a species kept at arm's length for reasons no one explained. They called the law foolish, a relic of the past. But the old ones still remembered. They had seen the fire in human eyes, had felt the weight of their will, had watched empires crumble before their defiance. They knew the truth. The law was not a choice. It was survival. And so the rule was born, the rule that echoed across the stars, the rule that shaped the galaxy in silence. Do not touch humans. For behind their quiet smiles, behind their fragile forms, lay something the universe could not control. Something that once awakened had burned through fleets and armies alike. Something that turned despair into fury, and weakness into strength. The galaxy had many laws, but only one was whispered in fear. Only one was obeyed without question. And only one was written not on paper, but in the blood of countless fallen. Do not touch humans. Centuries passed, and the law became legend. Most species in the galaxy obeyed it without thought, as natural as breathing. Children were taught the words before they learned history. Do not touch humans. Traders avoided their systems, soldiers avoided their paths, and governments avoided their names. But with time, memory faded. The fire that had once terrified the stars was hidden under silence, and silence breeds curiosity. To the young, the law felt like a story meant to frighten, a myth told by elders who clung to the past. And among the young was one who would break it. His name was Zorath, an ambitious officer in the patrol fleet of the Yelran species. He was clever, arrogant, and restless. He had risen quickly through the ranks, but his pride was greater than his wisdom. To him, the rule about humans was nothing more than superstition, a shadow with no weight. In the academy, he had asked why such a rule existed. His instructors had silenced him, their faces pale, but Zorath only smirked. He believed fear of humans was weakness, and he despised weakness. So when fate placed a human in his path, he saw opportunity. It happened at a border station near the quiet rim of known space. A human traveler arrived, carrying little more than a bag and a calm expression. He was not a soldier, not a threat, simply a wanderer passing through. But Zorath looked at him and saw a chance to make a name for himself. Arresting a human would break the oldest law of the galaxy. If nothing happened, it would prove the rule was meaningless. If something did happen, Zorath believed he could control it. His arrogance blinded him. He ordered his guards to seize the human. The moment their hands touched him, silence fell across the station. Every alien in the room froze, eyes wide with horror. It was as if the air itself grew heavier, pressing down on their chests. Whispers spread within minutes. The law has been broken. He touched a human. It has begun. Older officers turned pale, their memories clawing at them like ghosts. They remembered the stories their ancestors had whispered, the wars, the fire, the endless defiance. Some begged Zorath to release the human at once. But Zorath laughed at their fear. He paraded the human through the corridors, mocking the silence around him. He demanded answers from the prisoner, asking what secret power his kind truly held. The human said nothing. He did not resist, did not argue, only walked calmly as if waiting for something unseen. That calm unsettled the crew more than any scream could have. Rumors reached the council within hours. Across the galaxy, leaders held emergency meetings. Old memories stirred in chambers that had been silent for centuries. Some spoke in trembling voices. The law has been broken. Do you not remember what happened last time? Others tried to dismiss it as an isolated event. But fear is a language the galaxy knows too well. Already, fleets near the border began to pull back, not wanting to be caught in what might come. Traders abandoned routes, colonies went silent, and soldiers whispered in the dark. The weight of history had returned, and with it came dread. Meanwhile, Zorath continued his defiance. He placed the human in a cell, proud of his boldness. But that night, he could not sleep. In the silence of the station, he heard strange sounds, footsteps where no one walked, whispers where no one spoke. His dreams were filled with fire, with shadows of humans standing unbroken against endless armies. He woke sweating, his arrogance cracking. Still, he refused to release the prisoner. But the galaxy was already moving. Across distant stars, old stories awoke in the minds of those who had tried to forget. The humans had been quiet for centuries, choosing peace, choosing isolation. But the law had been broken, and the law was never about protecting them. It was about protecting everyone else. If the fire returned, no empire would survive. On the station, the crew began to act strangely. Some avoided their posts, unwilling to stand near the cell. Others packed quietly, preparing escape shuttles in secret. And always, the human sat in silence, his calm gaze watching, as if he knew what was coming. The moment was close. The galaxy had forgotten why it feared humans, but soon it would remember. And Zorath, in his arrogance, had lit the spark. The silence in the cell was heavier than chains. The human prisoner sat calmly, his eyes steady, his body relaxed, as if nothing in the galaxy could shake him. To the crew, that silence was worse than rage. They had expected screams, threats, or bargaining. Instead, he simply waited, and waiting made them afraid. Word of his capture spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, old species shivered, and young ones mocked nervously. Some called it madness, others called it courage, but all remembered the same truth. The law had been broken. And history had warned what came after. On the border station, tension grew unbearable. Officers who had once obeyed Zorath now avoided him, whispering in fear behind closed doors. Some begged him to release the human, to undo what had been done, but pride held him back. He wanted to prove the law was nothing, a myth carved by cowards. Yet inside his own heart, doubt crept like poison. Each night, his dreams burned with fire. Each day, his crew grew colder, their eyes avoiding his. And always, the human remained silent, a storm hidden inside a calm face. The Galaxy Council called an emergency session. Old voices shook as they spoke. It has begun again. We cannot allow this to spread. Some demanded the station be destroyed to erase the crime. Others feared destruction would only awaken something worse. They argued for hours. But in every corner of the chamber lay the same shadow. They all remembered the last time humans had been touched. And they all remembered the price. Then, something happened that silenced every debate. Across colonies and star systems, strange movements began. Ships once silent lit their engines. Messages traveled through channels long forgotten. Human outposts that had slept in peace stirred awake, their beacons pulsing across space. It was not war yet, but it was a warning. Humanity had heard what happened, and humanity never ignored its own. On the station, Zorath finally confronted his prisoner. He slammed the bars, demanding, "What are you? Why does the galaxy fear you?" For the first time, the human spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We are what you made us. When pushed, we do not bend. When chained, we do not break. And when touched, we rise." The words spread through the station like fire. Every crew member who heard them felt their bones turn cold. Some fell to their knees. Others ran. Zorath tried to shout, tried to hold power, but his voice trembled. The prisoner stood, his eyes meeting the officers. There was no anger in them, no hatred, only a certainty that cut deeper than any blade. At that moment, alarms rang. Long-range sensors detected fleets moving, not Dominion fleets, not Council fleets, but human fleets, their signatures unmistakable. They had come quietly, without warning, and now they surrounded the sector. No shots were fired, no threats made, but their presence alone was thunder. Every ship carried a message not spoken in words. Humanity had awakened. Panic erupted across the galaxy. Entire governments ordered their fleets to retreat from human borders. Colonies cut trade routes, fearing even the hint of conflict. Some leaders sent desperate apologies, begging for forgiveness, while others prepared their worlds for the worst. And through it all, humanity remained silent, their fleets waiting in stillness, their prisoner calm in his cell. Zorith, once proud, now fell to his knees, his arrogance shattered. He finally understood what the law had meant. It had never been about protecting humans. It had been about protecting everyone else from them. With quiet steps, the prisoner walked out, unchained, unguarded. No one dared to stop him. As he passed through the corridors, crew members lowered their heads, unable to meet his gaze. He left the station without a word, but his presence was enough. The message was clear. The rule had been broken, and humanity had answered. Across the stars, silence returned, but it was not peace. It was fear. The council declared once again that the law would stand, unshaken, unchallenged. Do not touch humans. Do not provoke them. Do not forget what they are. But deep inside, every leader, every soldier, every citizen of the galaxy now understood the truth. The law was not written on paper. It was written in history, in blood, in the ashes of fallen empires. Humanity was untouchable not because of a council, not because of a rule, but because no power in the universe could truly hold them. When provoked, they became something more than soldiers, more than survivors. They became a force of nature. And so the galaxy lived on, trembling in silence, pretending the fire had gone back to sleep. But in the shadows of every star, in the whispers of every world, the warning echoed again and again. Do not touch humans.